What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you my 5 most anticipated games, though a couple of things to be upfront with you about at the beginning of the video. For starters, I review games, so naturally people often wonder what I'm most excited about and things I am looking forward to. That said, none of these games are likely to be released anytime soon, like we're talking 2025 at the earliest. Moreover, some of the reasons I am excited about these games is kind of just to see how it pans out either way, because I fully admit that in some of these cases, it might not turn out well, which brings me to my next point, that while I do review games and I think it's important to get excited about things that you are passionate about, at the same time that hype needs to be mixed with a sizable dose of reality. And as such, if you're looking for like a hype, oh my god, everything is so exciting kind of guy, that's not me at all. Like, hell yeah, awesome is about as pumped as I get, frankly. But nonetheless, for various reasons, these are the games that have piqued my interest the most and I am looking forward to them. But again, in some cases, it's very possible these could wind up being a train wreck, and I'm kind of curious to see how that pans out too. So with all of those things said, let's actually dive into this thing. First and foremost, Dragon Age 4, or as we now know it, Dragon Age Dreadwolf. I've reviewed all 3 of the Dragon Age games up to this point, and I even made a video talking about my thoughts on the entire series. And the 2 things there are that I really love the world of Dragon Age. Just like all the lore, all the stuff around mages and the Templar, and just all this like different interpretations of the religion and how accurate some of that even is. The world is just very well built. And that's probably the thing I like the most about Dragon Age, is the lore is just really on point. However, in the thoughts about the series video I put out, I mentioned that every single one of the Dragon Age games tries to do something quite a bit different than the others. And in that video, I talked about how this has kind of led to splits in the fan base, where a lot of people feel differently about which Dragon Age is their favorite. And when you've deviated so much on the main series, you've kind of split the fan base on expectations, which means that Dragon Age Dreadwolf is going to have a very interesting time in terms of its reception, because honestly, I hope it's great. Like, I hope all video games are great. I do not wish failure on people. But I also think Dragon Age in particular is in a position where they're going to have a very uphill battle even trying to please most people, because again, their fan base is very fractured into what to even expect from a Dragon Age game at this point. And that's going to be interesting to watch. But nonetheless, curious to see how everything pans out. The stuff with the titular Dreadwolf and how Inquisition ended off was just really, honestly interesting. So I'm curious to see the resolution of that stuff. But that leads us naturally to the Elder Scrolls 6. Like a lot of people, very interested to see what Bethesda does here. As it has been literally over a decade since Skyrim, it will probably be at least 15 years since Skyrim released before we see the Elder Scrolls 6. I can speak for myself, but I imagine also for most people, their life has changed entirely since then. I was in boot camp when Skyrim released, actually, and then I've become a father since then. My life has changed in so many ways. It's honestly kind of crazy. So within that context, I'm very curious to see how Elder Scrolls 6 is going to just advance in terms of technology and also expectations, because Elder Scrolls 6, in a similar vein to what I was just talking about with Dragon Age, is probably going to be very different from the previous titles, because each iteration of the Elder Scrolls is quite a bit different than the previous ones. And while the Elder Scrolls retains that sort of core open world do-what-you-want gameplay for the most part, the titles themselves are still vastly different from each other, especially when you start throwing in, 15 years worth of time in between a release. It has me just curious to see how it's going to pan out, like just about everybody else. Now, third on the list, probably the one that I think the most people are not expecting to go well at this point, is Bloodlines 2. If you watch the channel at all, big Vampire the Masquerade fan. Unfortunately, though, not a lot of great video games. They tend to go the narrative RPG route. There really hasn't been another Bloodlines-like game since Bloodlines. But nonetheless, very big fan of Vampire the Masquerade and the World of Darkness as a whole, really. And I doubt I need to tell anybody watching this video that the situation around Bloodlines 2 has not gone well up to this point. It was originally seemingly quite far along in its development, and then suddenly everybody was fired. The publisher, Paradox Interactive, pulled the game basically and then gave it to a new developer that is yet unannounced. However, it is still currently in production. As little as 2 weeks ago, we got confirmation from the, I believe, CEO of Paradox stating in a tweet that it was still actively being worked on. So we're unlikely to see anything about it until next year, I imagine. And every time I mention that, a lot of people are like, well, they probably just canceled it and don't want to say, but I would tell you that that is very very unlikely, generally speaking, with publicly traded companies that, have stock and everything. Saying that you are working on something that just isn't true, like it's patently false how you're presenting it, opens you up to a lot of lawsuits in terms of like misleading investors, that type of stuff. So if it is canceled, it would be just infinitely easier in the long term for them to just say that. So I do believe it's in development, but ultimately it's just really hard to say what's going on with this. We don't even know what the game looks like at this point in terms of its current state. And as someone who reviews games, I had actually ordered a physical collector's edition, and they are honoring that as a reservation basically up to this point. I could get it refunded easy enough if I wanted to, but I like to have a little skin in the game when it comes to these things. So because of that, I'm leaving it lie. No idea what's going to actually happen with that, but that is a pre-order that I've had for like 2 years now. And I think it's safe to say the product itself will vary wildly, but I'd like to hear more about it before I do anything with that. But yeah, for good or bad, I'm absolutely looking forward to whatever happens with Bloodlines 2, because either way, it's something I can talk about. So there we go. But that brings us to number 4, probably the most interesting title on this list, and again, a game we don't know a lot about, really, and that is The Wayward Realms. This is a sort of Elder Scrolls-like in a sense. However, it is being developed by Once Lost Games, which has developers who worked on Elder Scrolls Arena and Daggerfall, which are the first 2 titles in the Elder Scrolls series. The third, of course, being Morrowind, and then onward from there. However, if you have ever seen or played any of Elder Scrolls Arena or Daggerfall, very different games. Daggerfall in particular was especially interesting because while it had a main plot and everything, it was really more of like a fantasy life simulator. The amount of systems and things that game could do were insane. And in some ways, from what I can tell, The Wayward Realms is attempting to be a more modern version of what Daggerfall was. And while it will be quite some time before we really hear anything about The Wayward Realms in terms of like concrete stuff, I'm very interested, if nothing else, because of what they're trying to do. And if it can live up to even half of what that was, Daggerfall that is, then I think it could be really cool. And last but not least, the game I think everybody who watches this channel knew was going to be on here is Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader. I'm a very big fan of Owlcat Games and the games they've made with Pathfinder Kingmaker and Wrath of the Righteous. They are a developer that is making games that are very much so in my niche, and they are doing it just about better than anybody else, frankly. And now they're bringing that to Warhammer 40k, which has given me an opportunity to learn more stuff about Warhammer 40k, as I didn't know a ton about it outside of the very, very basics. And I'm interested to see what Owlcat can do with it, especially after going over the source material, the Fantasy Flight version of the Rogue Trader TTRPG, set of course in the Warhammer 40k universe, but overall it's a very interesting setting where we take on sort of galactic exploration with very few limits on what we're allowed to do, sort of as a plot device to give us things to do. Honestly, that's like the whole point of Rogue Trader, is that they're not subject to the rather very strict laws of the Imperium of Man. So I think it's going to be just a really interesting exploration of that universe, again by a developer that I'm very fond of, so I'm very excited to see what they can do with it. So naturally, it's on my most anticipated games list. But there you guys go, 5 games that I am very excited for. But regardless of the games that were on this list, there are a ton of games coming out to be excited about. I think 2023 in particular is going to be a very cool year for gaming, as most of what was going to release in 2022 got pushed to 2023 on top of the stuff that was going to release in 2023 anyway. So I think that year is going to be just packed full of amazing games. So naturally, I'd love to hear about what games you guys are excited for that might be releasing a little sooner than the stuff I had to say and talk about on this list. If that wasn't clear enough, down in the comments section below, let me know all about it. But regardless, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.